Hi, I'm Leslie Omanya-Beggart, co-founder and head of learning at FabuLingua. And this is the second in a series of webinars for teachers. This webinar follows directly from the previous webinar on comprehensible input. So if you haven't watched that webinar yet, I highly recommend that you pause this one and go and watch that one first. And because the concepts in this webinar that we described follow on directly from the concepts that came from the previous webinar on comprehensible input. So let's kick off. Have you ever wondered why language learning in a traditional classroom typically leads to such notoriously poor long-term retention? There's a fact out there that's kind of mind-blowing. So do you know that less than 1% of kids who study a second language in a US classroom go on to become proficient as adults? That's pretty shocking. So why is that? Well, it's because traditional second language instruction consists of memorization and regular testing and pressure to create output to prove that you're learning. And the stress and boredom that's often the hallmark of language classes isn't just unfortunate, it's actually counterproductive. It actually impedes second language acquisition. The fact that negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, lack of motivation can derail and sabotage language acquisition is explained in Stephen Krashen's affective filter hypothesis. So let's dive straight into it. Krashen refers metaphorically to the affective filter as an invisible psychological filter that can either impede or promote second language acquisition based on the student's internal emotions. And here we have an illustration from one of his papers, one of his research papers. And I've gone ahead and put a little brain on the language acquisition device. So it's more clear that the destination of the input is the language acquisition system of the brain. And Krashen's filter can be seen as a metaphorical wall that goes up and down depending it goes up and down determining how much input reaches the language acquisition part of the brain. So a high affective filter from negative emotions is going to impede much of that input from reaching the language acquisition part of the brain, while a lower affective filter from positive emotions is going to allow more comprehensible input to that language acquisition part of the brain, and it's going to enhance language acquisition. Here is another way I have to visualize this metaphor. It's a coffee filter metaphor. And what we are seeing is that then when there are, in this coffee filter metaphor, when there are positive feelings from motivation, excitement, and fun, the affective filter allows a lot of the comprehensible input to reach the relevant brain systems, and language acquisition therefore happens naturally. But when there are negative feelings about language learning, stress, anxiety, fear, or boredom, the affective filter chokes out the comprehensible input. And as a result, less of it reaches that language acquisition part of the brain, and language acquisition fails. So I'm more of a coffee person, and that metaphor helps me more. But as a teacher, it is of utmost important to understand this affective filter, whichever metaphor works better for you, so that you can use it to work for you instead of against you, and dramatically increase the effectiveness of your language classes. So if you focus your classes on making sure that the students' emotions are positive, that they're motivated, that they're having fun, and that they're excited to be in class, then the comprehensible input that you provide will naturally do its job, and they will naturally acquire the language. On the other hand, if you go old school and test and drill and kill the fun, the affective filter will sabotage your classes, and your students won't acquire the language in the same long-term way. Now, sure, they might cram for the test and get a good grade, but the long-term acquisition won't be happening. So it's a very important concept to understand to make your classes more effective. So as Krashen says, the effective language teacher is someone who can provide input and help make it comprehensible in a low anxiety situation. In fact, As his hypothesis evolved, he eventually went on as far as saying that the anxiety didn't just have to be low, it had to be zero. So as a language teacher, it's very important to be aware of the signals and the symptoms that can indicate a high affective filter so that we can adapt our teaching and the learning environment to lower that affective filter. So creating a safe, supportive, no anxiety environment is step one to lowering the affective filter and enhancing language acquisition in your classroom. But how can we take it further so that students are truly engaged and motivated and lowering the affective filter even more? It's all in the fun. That's right. If you want to successfully teach your students using CI, you have to make sure your classes are fun, which is typically why CI language teachers are the goofiest, most fun teachers and classes in a student's day. FabuLingua is a digital platform that's been designed with a deep appreciation of the affective filter hypothesis and its enormous influence on second language acquisition. FabuLingua is a platform designed specifically for children to learn a language without ever raising their affective filter. It brings fun to the language learning experience and ensures kids are actively engaged and motivated in a mobile game with an exciting journey through a magical island. FabuLingua teaches a second language through compelling, comprehensible stories that are delivered through interactive stories that are set in this exciting mobile game. So in FabuLingua, they unlock beautiful new locations as they read more interactive stories, and they earn gold and diamond keys that unlock treasure chests full of rewards like stickers and like playing cards. Think of it as Pokemon meets Zelda for language learning. It's natural and it's subconscious. The best part for you as a teacher is that when you use FabuLingua as a teacher, not only do your students benefit, you benefit too. Your students' language acquisition skyrockets because you're now providing a lot of compelling CI in a fun, motivating, low anxiety setting. And at the same time, FabuLingua's teacher dashboard has suddenly made your life so much easier. Our student insights and done-for-you lesson plans mean that when you use FabuLingua, you will have your best year ever with less prep time than you've ever had before. Okay, now we're going to the third part of the webinar. It's the silent period. I'm going to press stop here so that I can record it as a new webinar. So make sure that you meet me over there and you go find the silent period webinar, and we can continue with this very important third insight, which forms like the third pillar of information that you need to know about language acquisition to be really successful in your classroom. See you on the other side.